output harness. Yeah, today we are going to be setting up this output harness. I have a few things that I need this for, and by few I mean two. So we're gonna be setting two-step up today. Obviously, first thing we gotta do is get it wired, and then also I want to run my fans through the Holley because I need to get rid of loud ass fan noise. I don't mind the fans, it's just no matter what, whenever I turn my ignition on, those fans come on because they're set right now to come on with ignition power. So we need to fix that, and if they're coming on through the Holley, that should fix that, hopefully. Alright, for starters, we're going to be shutting the power off to the Blazer completely. And if you guys remember, the ECU is actually wired directly to the battery. Instead of disconnecting it at the battery, I'm going to go ahead and unplug it from the back side of the ECU because I don't want to mess with anything wiring related with the ECU plugged in. As most of you guys know, when Braven had his Colorado up and running with the LS in it, he had a Holley Terminator X Max on his truck. He was trying to set his two-step up on his brights. So on that truck, it has that, you know, you pull it toward, you pull the lever towards you and the brights come on like a momentary switch, and then you release it and the brights go off. But if you want the brights on constant, you push it forward. So he was trying to hook his two-step up to that momentary bright switch, so he can just go like that and activate two-step. Whenever he was messing with that wiring is how he fried his ECU. So I don't know what happened. Something arced and it fried the computer, and he ended up having to send his Terminator X Max off to Holley, and it took them almost a month to get it back to him. Luckily they did replace it, which was great, but he was without it for a month. I don't want to take those chances. Anytime I'm messing with wiring, I am going to unplug this ECU. Alright, just take 3 screws out and we have full access to the computer. And I'm going to go ahead and unplug the main power harness here. The ECU and the entire truck have absolutely zero power going to them. And we need this guy anyhow because I gotta put some switches in our little empty hole. Put it in the comments down below if you guys recognize that. Pieces of khaki, man. Pieces of khaki. So yes, I'm gonna be robbing these switches off of khaki because I've got something new coming for khaki, and I'm not gonna need these switches anymore, so I figured I may as well recycle them and I can use them on the Blazer because we do need switches for the Blazer, and I'm excited for what it is that's going to be going inside of khaki to replace these. Alright, got all my switches mounted on there. I really like these like old school style metal switches for whatever reason. I know they're not the best looking thing in the world, but I think they look cool. And they got a really nice like hard click to them, you know what I'm saying? Anyhow, that's done. Before we go too much further, I just want to explain this to you guys. So this is the output harness that comes with the Holley, and this actually plugs directly into the harness down here. So coming down here looking at the harness, there's these 2 plugs that's just dangling here. This one right here is the output, the harness for the outputs. It's the clip, has a little protective piece of plastic on it. We have to pop that off, and then you can plug this guy in, and then these are all outputs on the ECU that you can use for different various things, you know, like AC kickoff, fans, two-step, and whatever else, you know, nitrous. But we're not going to plug this in yet. The 2 fan wires I need to route in here and get them ready to be connected to this. So for the fan outputs, we actually have 2. You have fan 1 and fan number 2. So you can control them separately and have them come on at the same temperature, or you can have them come on at different temperatures. So what I'm wanting to do is actually separate these 2 2 fans so that I have that feature. So coming down here, these are my relays that I wired up for the fans. They have their own fuse and each fan has a relay, but they are sharing a ground inside of this harness here. Both of the grounds for the relays come into one, and then they continue as just one wire, and they go underneath over there and get screwed in for a ground to the core support. The fans individually, those are grounded them like by themselves, so the ground wires coming off of the fan and going straight to the core support on both of them. So I'm going to leave the ground wires on the fans, but in order for the relay to activate, it needs to see power and ground. Right now, I have it hooked up. It comes up here to a ignition power. This power wire is what kicks the fans on, and that comes on whenever you turn the ignition on, and then the grounds are just connected. So basically I need to undo all of this, and I need to separate those 2 grounds, and the individual ground that comes out of each one of these are going to be the wires that we need to connect to those outputs on the Holley harness. And then those relays will not see ground unless the ECU tells it to, and it will complete the circuit, and then the fans will come on. But still, they will not get power unless my ignition is on. The whole system will not power up unless the ignition is on, and the fans won't get ground. Well, the relays to the fans won't get ground unless the ECU tells it to. All right, got that wiring all unwrapped, and where did it go? Right here. This is the grounds for the relay, and they just come both into one, and that is just going about a foot that way, and it's bolted to the bottom of the core support, like I said. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this here, and I need to run this as 2 leads, and it needs to go basically all the way in down there where all of our wiring is at. All right, got those separated, and I got them ran individually now, and they are shrink wrapped and soldered, and I went ahead and I taped the wires up so that it's a little bit more organized and it's easier to run. And of course, get it all wrapped up in some loom so it's nice and safe. Got that all taped back up. Now I just need to route this. I'm gonna go through the fender, cross over the rest of this wiring. I have a grommet on the firewall right there that it could pass through, and then bam, we are down there at our ECU wiring. And then I just have to connect these 2 to those 2 outputs, and then we can move on with 2-step. All right, got those wires ran inside of here. They're coming out of the grommet in the firewall right there where I ran my alternator and all that kind of stuff that comes in. So now I'm just gonna leave these sitting here for now. We're gonna go ahead and hook those up later. Now we need to do the wiring for the 2-step. So whenever it comes to the 2-step wiring, you need something to interrupt it, like a switch, right? I drew a little picture right here. So here is our computer, and that wire right there is to represent the 2-step output or signal wire, right? So whenever you supply either power or ground to that, so inside of the parameters on the computer, you can tell it whether that signal is going to be receiving a 12 volt or if that signal is going to receive a ground. You have to set that. So if you run it through a ground, you got to set that inside of the ECU. So the ECU knows that whenever it sees a ground signal from that, or a 12 volt signal from that, whatever you set, that is when to activate the parameter for 2-step. So if you just hook it up directly to, you know, whether it's your 12 volt or to your ground, if you hook it up directly, then you are going to be constantly basically in 2-step. Just to make things easy, let's say you have it set to 3,500 RPM. If I have that wire activated at all times, then the blazer will never pass 3,500 RPM. So you got to be able to shut it off. And that is where a switch comes in. So you interrupt it with a switch. So whenever you have the switch off, then you can rev past your set RPM, 3,500. Whenever you have the switch on, sending either that 12 volt or ground signal to the 2-step wire, then it will limit you to 3,500 RPMs. Therefore, you're capable of doing 2-step and launch control or whatever. Now, the downside to running this switch, in which I am going to be running a switch, that's going to be one of those switches we just put on the dash bezel, which will be right here whenever I get it reinstalled. So I'll have a switch right here for 2-step. So let's say I have my switch on and I am about ready to race, right? But I got my clutch in, I'm in first gear, and I am, foot on the brake in two-step. And I'm gonna pop that clutch up whenever it's time to go. I'm not going to cross 3,500 RPMs. The two-step is not going to be disengaged unless I kick that switch off. And you don't want to add that extra step. So what I'm gonna do, instead of just having it only to that switch, I'm also going to put it on this button right here. This button is for my line lock. So whenever it is I want to do a burnout, I pull up, I hit the brake, I apply the button, and then that holds my brakes so that I'm capable of doing a burnout, and it'll hold the front brakes, and then my back brakes are free to release and do a burnout, right? I also use this for staging, foot brake staging, because I don't have a trans brake or anything on this. So that is what makes it capable of me coming up to the line. I hit the brake, I hold this button with my left hand, and then I can let off of the brake. Therefore, my front brakes are being held when the line lock is on. Then my 2 feet are free to hold the clutch down and hit the gas pedal, and I don't have to actually hold my brake because I'm doing so right here. Now, whenever I have two-step engaged, so now in order to add that extra button in there, this switch is basically going to become the activation switch. So instead of this going directly to our 12 volt or our ground, so this is how it looks a little confusing, but trust me, it's not. This is how I'm going to be running mine. So on that button that's on my steering wheel, it already has power coming in, but the other side of that doesn't get power unless I push the button. So whenever I push the button, currently that power comes out and it goes to my line lock. I'm going to tap into that and run that to the other side of the switch. So now whenever this switch is off and I hold that button, the power is only going to my line lock. Whenever this switch is on and I hold that button, then the power is going to my line lock and my two-step. That's really important because I don't want the two-step to be activated by that button at all times. I need that switch in there to interrupt it, so then I can use that button for a burnout still. If I pull up and I'm gonna do a burnout, I can hold my line lock, holding the front brakes. I'm capable of doing my burnout and I have the full range of RPM. And then I pull up to the line, I'm about ready to stage the truck and get ready to actually race. That's when I hit the activation switch, and now that becomes not only my line lock button, but it becomes line lock and my two-step button. That is the configuration. Now I just need to figure out where that wire is at, tap into it, run it to one side of the switch, and then on the other side of the switch is simply going to go to whatever output it is that I want on my output harness. Then we need to, once I get that all wired up, then we have to actually do some stuff on the computer. I guess you can't actually activate all that from the handheld. I don't know. This is my first time doing it, but I'm gonna figure it out and I'll let you know. All right, so I'm doing a lot of tedious work off of camera. It's just bullshit that doesn't do good for video, you know? Anyhow, this whole setup right here that we were just talking about, I was previously running my signal for the line lock as 12 volt. So I had 12 volt running to this switch. So it ran to the switch, and then out of the switch, it went to the relay. So what I did is I switched that around. This is the relay for my line lock, where previously I had a power wire running all the way in there to the button here on the steering wheel. So this had a 12 volt running to it and then a 12 volt running out of it. And then it'd run out and it would go to the 12 volt section on that relay that I have. So I switched that around to where now my signal going to that relay is a ground. So now I have a ground running to this, and whenever I push the button, it connects it and the ground runs to that relay. Well, currently it runs right here. I don't have that hooked up. So this wire we need to now split. So this wire will run to that relay to activate it, and then also it's going to run to that switch whenever we get this all put back together. So whenever I push this button, that supplies a ground to this wire, which will activate that relay on my line lock, and then it will end right here at that switch. So if I have that switch flipped up and it's on, then the ground will also go to the signal wire for two-step on the ECU. Bang bang. So that's where I'm at. I'm gonna go ahead and split this wire a little bit further back, so then it splits off into two, and then I can run that to the relay and then move forward with getting our switch ran inside of here. All right, I got that split done. So now you see AC down inside of there. So now that wire splits off, and one is going out there to our relay for the line lock, and then the other split is going to come up here, and that's going to go to the back side of our switch. Now before we can move on to anything switch related, I am putting one of these distribution blocks on the back right here, so then I can go ahead and run all the wires. All the in and out for the switch is going to go into this, and then that'll leave me a place on the other side. As we add whatever it is that these switches are going to do, I'll just plug the wires into that section. So one of the things that I really like about this panel is that it's really easy to remove. I just take a couple of screws out, you know, and then I could just pop this down, and for the most part I have access to all of my wiring and my ECU right here. I don't want to limit myself to having a bunch of wires attached to it. So I mean, the wires no matter what are going to have to be attached to it, but I want to make this organized enough to where all the wires are going to be long enough to where whenever I do detach this, I can pull it out at least this far. From that point, be able to flip it upside down and just set it on top of the dash whenever I need to get it out of my way. I don't want to have to deal with something that's like just hard to access, you know. I want it to be easily accessible. So for the most part, I'm going to have to, anytime I run wires to these switches, I'm going to have to make sure that I run them all in the same position. So I'll probably put a zip tie or something right here that the wires will all have to pass through, and then come up to the switch panel and make sure that they're all the same length, you know. But it'll make it a lot easier having an attachment point like this distribution block that we can just, you know, run everything to. And then I'll have to, anything that's running to it, I'll have to put something else right here probably that attaches to it, but basically making like a harness that attaches to this thing, and I can still pull it away from the dash and set it on top out of my way. Anyhow, I got to get all these switches. I have to use those little like fork style prongs that'll slide into here. I'm gonna go ahead and get that done really quick, and then we can move forward. All right, so I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. All right, the computer portion of this took me a very long time to figure out for whatever reason, and it's because I was going back and forth between YouTube videos of people explaining how to do it, and some people were like explaining it like it was rocket science, and some people are like it's the simplest thing in the world. And I don't know, dude, I just got so confused, but I think that I've got her figured out. Now, nothing's finalized. I have the input output harness plugged in. I do not have my fan outputs hooked up yet. I just have the two-step just kind of twisted together right there. And if everything is correct, this should work. Bro, fingers crossed, man. I think I got this figured out. I've already uploaded the new configuration to this. Now I go to launch, two-step. Oh, it's already enabled. Enabled. Save. Back. Oh shit. 3,800 RPM. Save. Home. Alright, so just sitting here, I should be able to rev just fine. Okay?
Oh yeah, just fine.
Now, whenever I hit the line lock / two-step button, holy freaking shit, bro!
Baby, we getting shot at.
No, I need to figure out like the fuel enrichment and stuff of it.
Oh Lord.
Bro, that is freaking ridiculous. The whole truck's like, ah!
You feel it in the freaking camera. I'm sitting there and I'm like,
dude, wait till I figure out how to put some timing in this bitch. And the fuel enrichment on two-step or retard or what I'm learning.
You need to retard it?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. I'm learning, but yeah, I'll get it to where it's like, it'll be freaking shooting flames underneath.
Oh my god.
My exhaust kind of dumps underneath.
Yeah, I know.
That's exciting, bro. Holy shit. All right, I got to get all the wiring all cleaned up and put together, and I got to run the activation switch. So right now, it's just running straight to this. So whenever I get the switch hooked up, then this will only be line lock. And then whenever I hit the switch on, this will be line lock and two-step. So I can turn it off for doing burnout or whatever. Hell freaking yeah, bro. I'm glad that worked. That was a pain in the ass. You can ask baby. I was sitting in there ripping my hair out, staring at the computer screen for the past hour and a half.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But guess what? You got it.
Yeah. Figured her out.
Yay.
Yay. Turn my dome light off so don't die.
The only thing we got to worry about now is when you get the flames coming out your exhaust that we don't have any leftovers from the fire pit, because you like to pour excessive amounts of fire starter.
On the ground?
Yeah.
Fire starter evaporates.
Well, I know, but no fire starter or
No, what I have to worry about is if that gas tank back there is still leaking out of the O-ring on the top.
Oh my god.
That's what I gotta worry about.
Yeah, full coverage will cover that.
What the hell? I don't want to burn my blazer down. I don't care if it was covered. Alright, I got this thing all buttoned up. Where is my dome light? Hell yeah, everything's all put back together. Wiring's all hidden. Everything's looking freaking beautiful. So I got that activation switch ran. So now let's test that out and make sure it's gonna work. Alright, so activation switch is off and I'm not touching that button. This thing will rev freely. Actually, let's get to monitor, monitors, back. I already lost my stylus. Multi-gauge, vitals. Alright, RPM. Now I'll hold the line lock. That free revs, but now I'll hit the activation switch for 2-step. Now hold the line lock. Yes, sir. All right. Turn that boy off. Good Lord. This thing is fun. This thing is so much freaking fun. I swear to God, this thing is so much fun. Put it in the comments down below if you guys want me to make a video just going out and driving it. I think I want to go out and do a little bit of a test again. Maybe we'll take the draggy with us, you know what I'm saying?
Ooh.
Not like a full-blown test day, you know.
Not going back to our spot test day?
Yeah, like trailer.
There.
But like trailer and prep and all that stuff. I mean, just simply hopping in it and going for a drive, because I need to take it on the freeway. I was reading through the directions for the filling in the self-learning graph, and look, I know that the self-learning thing, a lot of people have the opinion that it's garbage or whatever, but I'm gonna do it, all right, until I get better with all this stuff and I'm capable of tuning, you know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna practice and we'll get it figured out. But right now, I'm just stoked that this thing has 2-step. Oh, I haven't even tried to see if the fans work. I guarantee you they work. Anyhow, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please do smash the like button. Peace, and I'll see you guys on the next one. I gotta go cook wieners for baby.